Hi, welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. And on this podcast, we are going to continue to talk about the pure competition model. And we're going to kind of put everything together in what's called the constant cost to industry graph. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually have two graphs now. We're going to have a graph over here on the left-hand side for the entire market or the entire industry for some goods. I'm going to say, let's say our good is carrots. So here we have the quantity of carrots on the horizontal axis, price of carrots on the vertical axis, and then we have, P1, Q1, our normal old supply and demand graph that we looked at on a lot of previous videos. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have some representative firm in the industry. Now, remember, if this is pure competition, there are many, many companies, many firms in the carrot market all producing the exact same carrots. So this is one representative firm over here. Okay, this is what one representative firm might look like. Now, on some previous videos, we were drawing a lot of graphs with marginal cost, average total cost, and then we added on to it this graph right here, this curve right here, which is price, demand, marginal revenue, and average revenue all at once. And we said that graph, demand, price, demand, marginal revenue, average revenue, we just kind of drew it like I did here. If I just go back to it real fast, we did an example where we drew the demand curve up above average total cost, and we did an example where we drew it below average total cost, and we did an example where we drew it equal to the average total cost. But we just kind of drew these. We never really said where they came from. Why is the demand curve where it is? And we now can answer that by putting the market and the firm together, because where does this demand curve come from for the individual firm? Well, it comes from the marketplace. Okay, in the marketplace, we have the supply for carrots and the demand for carrots, if that's our good, and that's going to generate an equilibrium price. An equilibrium price is going to emerge, and that equilibrium price, remember that the firm is a price taker, so that price that emerged in the marketplace, well, there it is. That's going to be the price. Okay. That's going to be the price in the marketplace. So that price that is generated over here by supply and demand, that price is going to become the demand curve for the individual firm, and it's also the marginal revenue for the individual firm, and it's also the average revenue for the individual firm. And notice this. The demand curve for the individual firm, let's actually name this firm. Let's say this firm, some guy is Kurt's Carrots, okay? This is Kurt's Carrots Incorporated. And Kurt's Carrots, this is the demand curve for Kurt's Carrots, which is perfectly elastic. The demand curve for Kurt's Carrots is perfectly elastic. Why? Because there's an infinite number of other substitutes. You remember, there's many firms all producing the same good. So the demand curve for Kurt's Carrots is perfectly elastic, because if Kurt tries to raise his price, well, you just go buy Kathy's carrots or whatever, Catherine's carrots or somebody else's carrots. So the demand curve for carrots in the market is downward sloping, just normal demand curve. But the demand curve for the individual firm is perfectly elastic, Now, we would say that right now this industry is in long run equilibrium. This industry is in long-run equilibrium. Why? Well, because the price is at equilibrium, the quantity is in equilibrium, and the individual firm is in equilibrium. What do I mean by that? It's in equilibrium because the economic profits are equal to zero. The average revenue is equal to the average total cost. So if the economic profits are zero, that means no firms are going to exit the industry, no firms are going to enter the industry, and things are just going to stay how they are. Okay, so this is long-run equilibrium. Now, let's look what happens if something knocks the industry out of equilibrium. So let's say a real-world event. Down here, my real-world event, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to write kind of small here. We'll try to, and actually, I'm probably being blocked over here. I'm sorry, I'm going to move this over here so that we can see it. Okay, so we're going to go through the real-world event, determinant, shift, and what happens to price, quantity, and quantity. We're going to look at what happens to both quantities. So we're going to work through the economic model. So here we go. My real world event is, let's say that some new study comes out that tells about the health benefits of carrots. So some new study comes out and it says that, carrots are really healthy. Maybe they help your eyes or something. My mom always told me that. I don't know if it's true, but let's pretend that it was true. And so this new article comes out that carrots are really healthy. And so now, what are people going to do? Well, they're going to want to go buy carrots. So my determinant is going to be a change in taste and preferences. It's going to be a change in taste and preferences, and people are going to want to start buying more carrots. And that's going to cause the demand curve for carrots to shift out to the right. Okay, people are going to want to buy more carrots. So the demand curve for carrots is going to shift out to the right. And so we should record that. Demand curve is going to shift to the right. Now, what's going to happen as a result of that? When the demand curve shifts out to the right, that's going to cause the price of carrots in the market to get bid up. Okay, that's going to cause an increase in the price of carrots. In addition to that, it's going to cause the quantity of carrots that are going to be bought and sold in the market is going to increase to Q2. So the quantity will increase and the price will increase in the market. So we can record that down here. We can say there's going to be an increase in the price and an increase in the quantity. Now, when we were on older videos where I was just doing plain old supply and demand, that was the end of the story. Right? That was the end of the story. Increased price, increased quantity, done. But that's not the end of the story anymore, because we got to take that price over. We got to bring that price over here, and that price, that new higher price, is now going to create a new demand curve for the firm. The firm is now going to face a new price, and therefore they're going to have a new demand curve up here. And remember, this new demand curve is also going to be the marginal revenue curve, and it's also going to be the average revenue curve. It's going to be all four things at once. And now the firm's going to change its behavior. Why? Because at this higher price, well, remember, they're going to produce where the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost, so they're now going to produce right here. And so that means the quantity produced by the individual firm is now going to rise. And so now I want to record that right here. There's going to be an increase in production by the individual firm. Now, we're going to come over and have another real-world event is going to change over here. What's going to change over here? Well, the firm is now operating at what? The firm, well, let's go check this out. If the firm produces here at Q2, their average revenue is now going to be up here, and their average total cost is now going to be down here, right? So the firm is now going to be making an economic profit equal to this box between the average revenue and the average total cost. Okay, they're now going to be making an economic profit. Now, that's really important to say that they are, let me just get rid of that so my graph isn't cluttered. It's important to say that that my new real world event is the firm is now making an economic profit. And remember what that means. What is an economic profit? That means that they are beating their next best opportunity. Okay, that means they are beating their next best opportunity. And if they're beating their next best opportunity, then remember, in a purely competitive industry, there's no barriers to entry. So other firms, maybe some companies making broccoli, and they're going to look over here and they're going to say, wow, look at all the money these carrot people are making. Okay, they're making an economic profit. They're beating their next best opportunity. They're doing better than the broccoli growers. And so people who are growing broccoli are now going to go switch to making carrots. So my determinant is going to be a change in the number of producers, or change in number of suppliers, whatever you want to call it, change in number of producers, and new producers are going to enter the industry, and when they do, that's going to shift the supply curve to the right. That's going to shift the supply curve to the right. Now, when the supply curve shifts to the right, all right, what's going to happen? Couple things. Now the price is going to get bid back down. The price is going to get bid back down. I'm going to call it P3. Okay, let me just rewrite that. I'm going to call that P3, but let's just keep this in mind. P3 is equal to P1. Okay, the price is going to come back down to where it was before. The quantity in the market is now going to continue to rise as new firms enter the market. The quantity in the market is going to continue to rise to Q3. The quantity in the market will continue to rise. Okay, so the supply curve shifts to the right, change in number of producers, new producers enter the market, and that's going to cause the price to get bid back down. And the way I'm going to write this here at the end is I'm going to say this little bar here is going to mean that the price finishes where it started. Right? The price originally got bid up, which is very important. The price got bid up, and now as new companies enter the industry, the price gets bid back down to P3. So I'm going to say the price finished where it started. Okay, what about the quantity for the entire industry? Well, the quantity for the entire industry is going to go up. Okay, now at the beginning they were producing Q1, and then they increased production to Q2, and now production is going to rise to Q3. So production quantity for the entire market is going to rise. And what about for the individual firm? Well, the new price is now going to be P3, which of course is equal to P1. And so the demand curve is now going to shift back down here to P3, which means the firm is now going to come back to producing here where the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. So the firm's going to produce right here at, I'm running out of room here. We'll try to fit this in. This would be Q3, which is equal to Q1. They're the same thing. So the firm is going to return to the level of production where it was at the beginning, right? Production went up, and then it's going to go back down, the individual firm. Now, how can it be that the total market is producing more if every firm has returned to producing what they were before? Well, the big reason is because there's more firms in the industry now. There's more companies in the industry, all right? New companies have entered the industry. Now, we also have to identify what is called the long-run supply curve, the long-run supply curve for the market. So what's that idea going to be? Well, look at this. Originally, the firms were producing in the market, the price was P1, and companies were producing Q1 units of the good. Now the price is P3, which is the same as P1, by the way, and now they're going to be producing Q3 units of the good. And so if we connect those two dots, that's going to be the long-run supply curve for the industry. That's going to be the long-run supply curve for the industry. So we have a lot of curves to keep track of here. We have a lot of curves to keep track of. There is the demand curve for the market. There's the supply curve for the market. There's the long-run supply curve for the market. And then there's the perfectly elastic demand curve for the individual firm. A lot to keep track of. Now, notice this. What's really, really cool about this is how well markets work when they work. When there's competition, markets work really, really well. I gotta say, when there's competition, markets work really, really well. If people want more carrots, what do they got to do? How do they communicate that information to the firms? If they want more carrots, all they got to do is go buy more carrots. And if they go buy more carrots, the demand for carrots will shift to the right, and that will bid up the price. Now, notice the price is a communication system. The price is an enormous communication system. The price is how we tell companies that we want more of the good. We just buy more of it. We don't have to call them on the telephone. We don't have to send them a text or whatever, an email or anything like this. We just got to buy more carrots. When we buy more carrots, that will bid up the price. And when the price gets bid up, that means the firms will start operating at an economic profit, which means new firms will come into the industry, and the supply curve will shift to the right, and they'll start making more carrots for us. Okay, that's pretty amazing how it works. And the price system is what connects this all together. The price system acts as an enormous communication system, and brings the market to equilibrium and encourages those producers to produce the goods that we want. So that's how the constant cost industry works, and that's how we work through this purely competitive model. All right, I'll do another one of these examples on another podcast because this is really important, and we should probably work through this again. But thanks for joining me for this one. Thanks for joining me for this podcast. This has been Mr. Hagan, and we'll see you on the next podcast.